Santana over here at Hip Hop Weekly. I'm going to be conducting this interview with you today. It is an honor to be speaking with you. I heard your project is great. It's nice. You know what I mean? Like you covered so many different topics, you know, and I feel like that this project was meant to be dropped within this time frame of everything that's going on. So I must ask you, you know, when did you decide that you wanted to pick up the pen and start, you know, writing these lyrics?
I mean, I've been dropping projects for a while now. I actually put out 3 projects in one physical year. But you know, I kind of felt like with the stuff that was going on with the social injustice and politics and just us being home, I wanted to connect with people on a personal level. I kind of feel like our artists don't kind of do that anymore.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I grew up in an era where I knew my artists without ever meeting them. You know, like they said things that connected to me on a personal level. So, you know, I made it my business on this project to make sure that I connected with everyone, because every situation in life is a song. And I display this on the project, from, you know, talking about my daughter to relationship issues to how I grew up. And of course, you know, systemic racism, politics, and just unorganization in hip hop, and pretty much just everything.
I love that. I love that. And speaking of, you know, with the politics and like everything that's been going on, the year 2020 is crazy. It's a movie. What would you rate 2020 if somebody asked you, hey, what would you think about 2020?
It's trash. Take it back. Take it back. I want to go back to 2019. You know,
please take us back. I think we took 2019 for granted.
Yeah, I mean, 2020 has been terrible overall, but, you know, even in the midst of this, I was able to accomplish some big things with, you know, DJing at Madison Square Garden at the top of the year.
Right.
And then now, obviously, my album, you know, being displayed on a billboard in Times Square. So those type of things are definitely dope, like personal things that I've achieved. But overall, it's just a shitty ass year. You know what I'm saying? We done lost so much. It's just been bad. You know, people are struggling with over income and, you know, not knowing where the next money going to come from. And then obviously we have no leadership across the board, you know. Right. So hopefully when the ball drops in 2021, we can get things back rolling.
Right. I definitely hope so. You know, speaking of the people that we lost over the years, starting out with January, we lost, you know, unexpectedly Kobe and his daughter Gigi. You know, I think that shocked the world the most, because it was just like, you just wake up and you're seeing on CNN and everybody's getting the news on their phone. It's like, what? It's unexpected, you know. And then, you know, moving over into February with Pop Smoke, you know, him being in New York, and you know, you're from New York as well, you know. How did you feel when you heard the news that Pop Smoke, someone who is literally at the peak of his career, everybody's co-signing him, everybody's after him, wanting him to win, and for his life to be taken away, you know, how did you feel about that?
I have a two-sided answer to that. Obviously, you know, you don't want none of our young kings and queens lives taken at any point. You want to live your life in a natural progression. You want to be here to achieve the goals and stuff. But at the same time, sometimes we may negatively bring negative energy into our lives without realizing it, by the type of content that we just speak on a daily basis, or what we put in our music. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's just the cross in between the two. I think it's just more about having the OGs coming in and kind of schooling these young kids, because they're not growing up in the era that I grew up in. Where, like, you know, you really had to survive. It was really crack and this and that. It was really that. It's like a lot of things that are kind of going on. They're just happening just to happen, in a sense, right? There's no real meaning behind it. When we have all the resources and all the technology to be successful now that we didn't have back then. So, but I do think that he was on his way to change the course of hip hop past drill music. Because if you hear the records that he dropped, they weren't really drill records. He had like almost like R&B 2000 records, right? Like hip hop, those type of records. So I think he would have changed it, and we're just gonna have to wait for the next king to come. But definitely rest in peace, Pop Smoke. It was definitely you know, sad for hip hop in my city.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that. So when I would say, when you speak of like the OGs and then the newcomers that's coming along, there's a disconnect. You
Yeah.
know, you have the OGs, you have the younger, heads who are coming in. They don't want to listen to the OGs, or they're looking to them to, give them some knowledge or anything. However, the OGs, they're so stuck in their own ways.
Yeah.
They don't want to grow just as well as they don't want to help the younger person grow. They're in your community. You see what
Mm-hmm.
they're doing. A lot of them, they're, joining gangs, or,
Mm-hmm.
just being involved in a negative way when they're trying to pursue a music career. So if you were speaking to, you're an old head, I would consider you to be an old head. If you were speaking to someone in the younger generation of an artist, what advice would you give them?
I mean, just as an artist in general, the number one advice that I would give them, I mentioned earlier, every situation in life is a song.
Mm-hmm.
So things that you're going through, other people are going through, and you need to connect with them in that way. That's how we build legacy artists like the Pacs, the Biggies, our greats, right, across
Mm-hmm.
the board. The second thing is don't feel pressured because you have resources. Don't use race or the block you're from as a crutch or as an excuse to why you're doing the things that you do. Because we all have the same opportunities here in this country. And if you don't choose to take them, it's your fault. You know what I'm saying? Can't blame nobody else. A lot of times we got to take accountability. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the final thing. We, as older and younger people, we have to take accountability. If something's not going right for you, you can't always point the finger. Change starts from within. So it
Right.
starts with you. So you gotta check yourself first before you check the rest of the world. But I do think though, overall, because of social media and because we have access to the world in our phone, we've lost the community-based aspect of
Mm-hmm.
growing up. Like, for example, like I have 5 kids in my house. They're not growing up, even though I live in a suburban neighborhood, but they're not growing up with the kids around us, and we're not interacting with their parents and, checking on our kids as it was before. So we got to kind of recreate that. We got to stop making our lives this mobile device.
Right.
You know
I
what I'm saying?
definitely. Mm-hmm.
Got to stop making our lives the most a mobile device because I heard somewhere, and it was staggering that the only two things that they call like the person that conducts a user is drugs
Mm-hmm.
and mobile devices, right? So it's like
Right.
you're a user on your phone when you drugs, so it's like you're almost addicted to it in a weird way. You know what I mean? It's just it's
Mm-hmm.
fucked up, but we're gonna get it right though, definitely.
Definitely. I hope so, because I would love to see the new generation of music, especially the era that we're growing in, how do you feel about the new age music, although it's different from the era that you grew up in, how do you
Yeah.
feel about the newcomers that's coming along?
Um, I don't really know honestly. Like I think in the beginning I wasn't receptive to it completely.
Hmm.
And then when I became a DJ, I had to sit my kids down. I've said this before, but I had to sit my kids down. I had to talk to them like, why do you guys like this music? And,
Hmm.
this is their version of hip hop. So it's not for me or anyone to judge them based on what version of music they consider hip hop. My version is different. Their version is what it is. I do think, though, we need to start um, just creating a more well-rounded body of work,
Right.
right? And we're not getting that. Like we're not getting a well-rounded body of work. We're just kind of getting the same feel
Hmm.
in the 8, 9 songs that they're getting, and a lot of it has to do with artists using attention span as an excuse for them not to create.
Hmm.
So they're using like an attention span as an excuse to not write 3 verses. Now they're giving you a
Right.
2-minute song. Then they're giving you
Hmm.
2 minutes of the same stuff. You know what I mean? We just need a little more diversity. There are some people that are doing it like the Kid Corday, I mean
Hmm.
YBK, like him. There are a few
Hmm.
people that are doing different stuff and they're embracing their type of thing. But I wish we just had more of it around. I think hip hop would be even in a better place than what it is now.
Right, right. I definitely agree. So when we speak of like the eras of music, which era would you say is your favorite?
I'm gonna have to say the '90s because that was just the era that I grew up in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I also think the '90s was the most diverse era, and I also think it was the most personal era because we had an R&B genre. You know what I mean? So we had that was one thing. Then we had of course hardcore hip hop. We had different variations, West Coast music. Like it was just a well-rounded. And then we also still had splashes of our legends releasing music, like a Keith Sweat, like a Luther Vandross.
Right.
Like we had that type of interaction. We had people that could actually sing, like, you know what I mean, like ballads and stuff like that. So I would definitely say '90s for me was my favorite era.
Well, see, I was born in the 90s, but like 94, so I wasn't really in the era like that.
Yeah.
So I was more like, you know, going into the 2000s and the, you know, 2000 after the 2000s, that was like my era, you know, the area like, you know, your Ja Rules and everything, your Shanties, your Fat Joes, Beyonce's. It was just everybody, Jay-Z's, all of that stuff. That's kind of like what I grew up in, and then moving over to like the dance songs they used to have. So I feel like the hip hop culture has, you know, it's timeless, but it's also evolved over the years.
It has.
You know, and currently now, people have a little bit of a iffy stance with it, because it's like a lot of people are trying to bring back that old, you know, music back. And it's kind of hard because not everybody's much of a lyricist or anything. They just know how to make a single and then drop another single and then drop another single. So yes, I understand when you speak of like the body of work, nobody knows how to be versatile with it, you know, or give them some type of, you know, make it fresh but modern, you know.
Yeah, but the problem becomes that because they're not taking the steps to create this, the artists, they're stuck in 360 deals. The artists are stuck on relying on a stream instead of a sale.
Yes.
Right? So, you know, that's a big thing, because every time you get a stream, you get zeros. Like there's like a whole bunch of different numbers. People are like, oh, is this, that? You get 0.18 cents for a free service. So if you have Spotify free, if you stream it, that artist gets that. If it's a paid service like Apple Music, you get 0.23 cents. So hypothetically speaking, you need 1 million streams to make $1,700. Like, you know, that's no artist can live off that. Now, granted, you're making millions and millions of dollars, but if you figured out how to create a stream into a sale, you can turn that 0.18 cents into $10 instantly.
Right.
But they're not gonna do that if they don't resonate with the music. So that's why it's important for these kids to talk about different topics, because a lot of these kids are actually depressed, and I think they don't know how to express it. They have, you know, upbringing issues. They're dealing with drug issues, and they just not expressing it in the right way. So we kind of need to mold them and kind of show them music will never go back to what it was. It's never going to be that way again. But music will change, and I do think that you know, the Southern era is hitting its 20-year mark, just as the boom bap era did in 2000. The last time lyrical artist was charting was around like 2002. That's when like like Lil Jon, all of them started coming out.
Yeah.
So now we're getting to the 20-year mark. I just hope that the younger generation will be able to survive the change. Because if and when it does go back, because it will go back, will they be able to adapt to it?